President Trump did a roundtable about Antifa on Wednesday. Let's see how that went.
1 year penalty for inciting riots. We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through the courts, and the court said you have freedom of speech. But what has happened is when they burn a flag, it agitates and irritates crowds. They've never seen anything like it on both sides, and you end up with riots. So we're going on that basis. We're looking at it not from the freedom of speech, which I always felt strongly about, but never passed the courts.
That's literally how Hannah talks to our 2-year-old. So you got to play with your freedom of speech. You hit your brother with it. So we're going to take it away. You can maybe get it back tomorrow if you're lucky.
It's very funny watching him try to justify and communicate Stephen Miller's fascist legal opinions on things like this, because you can tell what he's trying to do there is say, yes, you have a constitutional right to burn the flag, maybe, but all this flag burning that's happening everywhere is agitating the crowds, and that's causing violence. So the flag burning is inciting violence, which is why it doesn't count as free speech anymore. That's their legal argument for this.
Yeah, they're just Sharpieing the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Yeah, there's some bedrock Supreme Court rulings on freedom of speech and flag burning in particular. Justice Brennan wrote, if there's a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it is that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea offensive or disagreeable.
You know who signed on to that one too? Scalia.
So that's great. That's a little fascist turn at our Antifa rally. But in addition to talking about crushing off...
Can we just talk about... He's holding an Antifa roundtable. We just sort of skipped over that.
Yeah, so...
a roundtable about Antifa. What does that mean?
So the freedom of speech part, killing off freedom of speech, that part kind of surprised us. Mostly he was surrounded by members of his cabinet, law enforcement. It was FBI Director Kash Patel. There was Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. There was Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. Then there's a bunch of MAGA media influencers who had covered Antifa rallies or gotten fights with Antifa members at events.
Years ago.
Per usual, these attendees, they spent most of their time kissing Trump's ass, but they also had some chilling words for Antifa such as it exists.
A perfect mix.
Their political enemies generally. Let's watch one of those.
We're not going to stop at just arresting the violent criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence.
Chilling stuff. So let's just flagging for everyone that they have not taken out the top of the cartels. We have not even gotten close. We've done a little bit of effort at the bottom.
Blowing up a few fishing boats?
Yeah.
I would stay away from those boats if I was Antifa.
What that looks like, is drone strikes or helicopters, the U.S. military assets firing missiles at boats. We're going to do that to American citizens because Pam Bondi says they're in Antifa.
And she was very clear there that they're not just talking about violent criminals that you can see. So now we're dismantling and destroying, like their cartels, people that the government thinks are somehow connected to Antifa, which is not actually an organization that exists.
So airstrikes on the Ford Foundation? What are we talking about?
It's really the most out of control thing that I can't believe. I hadn't seen that clip. That is fucking nuts.
It's crazy. Ben and I have talked about this a lot, how they're concocting this made up legal rationale to assert that Donald Trump has the authority to murder people he suspects of being drug runners or drug sellers or cartels. We don't know for sure that the people on these boats that were blowing up are in cartels. In fact, there's a lot of evidence. The very first boat they struck had 10 to 15 people on it. We know that boat had turned around. We know that they struck it once and then they struck it again to kill off the survivors. There's a lot of people who think that at least half or some percentage of the people on that boat were migrants getting trafficked to a new location and not cartel members, which is just straight up murder.
The other problem with Antifa and targeting Antifa is what we're already seeing from ICE everywhere is they are lying whenever they can. They're lying about what protesters do to them, whether the protesters are violent towards them, or whether they initiated the violence towards the protesters. And so, like, all they're looking to do here is basically people they don't like, they can now arrest or hurt, right? They're saying
kill.
because they are part of this terrorist organization, which is a made-up designation for any kind of domestic group.
Yeah, well, the Antifa is in our hearts.
This video is brought to you by Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe is the new way to keep your home safe. Typical security systems only react once someone is inside your home. Real security stops a crime before it even starts. With Simply Safe, the moment someone steps onto your property, AI-powered cameras detect threats while they're still outside your home and alert real security agents right away. To get 50% off your new system, go to simplysafe.com/crooked. That's simplysafe.com/crooked for 50% off. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
I'm glad you brought up ICE, because that was a couple clips from this Antifa roundtable at the White House. This next video is from Chicago, but I think it tells you everything you need to know about how the ICE operations in Chicago are going. Let's watch. Okay, so the man who got shot in the head there with a pepper ball is Reverend David Black. He's a minister in the Presbyterian Church. In that video, he's standing in front of a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in the Chicago area. He's dressed in black. He's wearing a clerical collar. He was inviting the masked ICE agents on the roof to pray with him. That's why he had his hands up. And then they shot him in the head with a pepper ball. Reverend Black said he could hear the agents laughing at him.
Well, Tommy, you might think that's the story, but we got a late-breaking fact check from Tricia McLaughlin,
oh, God.
the chief propagandist at DHS.
Yeah. Well,
and she says, I got you guys. That footage is from almost a month ago.
what does that tell you about
Nothing. And what this clipped video doesn't show is that these agitators were blocking an ICE vehicle from leaving the federal facility, and they were warned that if they didn't move, force would be used. And then at the end it says, oh, as an aside, this is the same pastor, in quotation marks, who flipped Secretary Noem and our team the bird when we were there last week. So what she did is basically like another one of those 500-word tweets. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of words to admit that they shot an unarmed pastor in the head with a pepper ball who was not violent or even appearing to be violent in any way, shape, or form.
The only sort of fact there that we didn't know was it happened a month ago.
It's just like they were warned to leave, and they said that, okay, you're warned to leave. You know what you could do is the agent could go up to him and say, please leave. If you don't, one more time, I'm going to physically remove you.
Or the cops could arrest him.
Yeah, you could do that.
Tricia McLaughlin, the DHS spokesman, it's like this like fascist propaganda with a blowout. It just drives me crazy. There's a group of Chicago-based organizations that are suing the Trump administration for trying to intimidate them and silence them and violate their First Amendment rights. The suit mentions 6 journalists who have been hit with pepper balls or tear gas despite wearing press credentials. There's 8 examples of protesters and residents who are harmed by ICE. And the point they're making in this suit is this police brutality is not in response to resisting arrest or refusing to disperse. It's just ICE agents looking up and firing a pepper ball at them in the hope of silencing these protesters. And that includes, we talked about this on the pod on Tuesday, but there's a CBS News reporter in Chicago who was driving by an ICE facility. There was no protest even happening, and an agent shot a pepper ball into her car, which could have killed her, right? I mean, imagine you get hit in the face with a pepper ball as you're driving, like you could crash. And it also burned her face because there's a chemical agent in there.
They shot a woman who they initially said was ramming their car. And then in court, the woman's defense lawyer, because she took herself to the hospital and she was wounded and she's still alive, but the defense lawyer, they got the body cam footage, and it appears that they rammed her. And then one of the ICE officers said to the other, or said to her basically through the window, like, "Go ahead, move, bitch." And then she did, and then shot her 5 times with a real gun, not pepper ball.
These guys are just like, they're just thugs. It's like, it would be funny if it wasn't deadly. Well, at least Trump is kind of trying to fix this. He's changing course. Earlier today, he posted on Truth Social, Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also, exclamation points. So I guess like the Texas National Guard is now going to go arrest Democrats Trump doesn't like. Is that the play?
I mean, I haven't seen Pritzker's reaction yet, but if I were him, I'd be like, come get me.
Come and get me, buddy. Also, I saw that on October 7th, the FBI director, Kash Patel, tweeted, "Chicago will be saved, and this FBI will continue to crush violent crime there and all around the country, heading to the Windy City now." It's worth noting that last summer, Chicago had the fewest murders since 1965. Obviously, it doesn't mean the problem is solved, far from it. But the idea that there's now an emergency that necessitates a troop deployment, or dumbass Kash Patel flying his ass out there so he can, stand in the back of a press conference and make everyone feel awkward. That seems a little silly.
And he was on a streak at a table at the Bellagio, and then he had to leave and go take a Vegas to O'Hare flight.
Anyway. So there's some polling out. Not great. Reuters had a poll that said 37% of those surveyed agreed that presidents of either political party should have the power to deploy troops into states, even when state governors object. 48% disagree. I'd like that disagree number to be a touch higher.
Yeah, it's sort of it's not. There are not enough specifics on that question, right? If I would want a president to deploy troops if there was an emergency that the governor was standing in the way of. First, I would answer that question positively.
That's fair. There was another New York Times Siena poll that found 52% of those surveyed disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. It's similar to the polling we talked about from CBS on the pod. 46% approve. 51% said Trump's actions around immigration enforcement had gone too far. Again, a majority, but a barely majority. Again, I'd love that number to be higher. I do think the more images and videos there are of priests getting shot in the head with pepper balls, it'll probably increase that.
Yeah. As we have talked about this in the last 10 minutes, notice we haven't really talked about immigration. And I do think that there's just a challenge with the polling right now where, let's throw in a poll. Do you think that ICE officers should be able to shoot an unarmed pastor, inviting them to pray in the head with a pepper ball? And let's see where that gets.
Do you want to pray with me?
Yeah. Let's see if we have. I bet we'll get a 70-30 split.
Yeah,
I'm hoping.
These guys.
It would be nice to get 80-20, but I think at least 70-30.
I'd settle for 70-30 on any of this stuff. Okay, well, that's our depressing update on all things ICE and the amazing Antifa rally that solved everything.
Roundtable.
Sorry, Antifa rally. Yeah, Antifa rally is the things we attend.
That's what we're gonna get for
Antifa Roundtable. Thanks for watching this episode of Pod Save America here on YouTube. Please subscribe, because we're trying to build a progressive media empire, and a lot of those goons at that roundtable have way bigger followings on YouTube than we do, which means when people search for political news on YouTube, they find Andy Ngo, or whatever the hell his name is, a bunch of right-wing propagandists. We want them to find factual information from a progressive standpoint. So subscribe and help us do that.